Hello and welcome to Tyler vs. Hollywood. Today we're going to be talking about Will Smith, but first, let me ask you a question. Did you or anybody who you know actually enjoy The King's Speech? I'm betting that the answer is no. The King's Speech is a good example of what is known as an Oscar bait movie, a movie that is tailor-made to win as many Academy Awards as possible. There is a certain formula to this. There are 6 ways to win yourself an Academy Award. Number 1, being what I refer to as a very important movie. A very important movie is a movie that is very oppressive and depressing and dull and nobody actually enjoys watching it, but at the very end gets very uplifting, so you watch it and you feel, wow, that was very important. A good example of this is The King's Speech, which is, well, it's the freaking King's Speech until the end when the guy learns how to talk right. The second way of winning an Academy Award is to make a biopic. That is a movie that's about an actual person who actually lived. A good example of this is, once again, The King's Speech. The fourth way of winning yourself an Academy Award is to make your movie as serious as possible without getting so depressing that the audience kills themselves halfway through. Comedies, action movies, sci-fi, and mostly fantasy never win Academy Awards, so you don't want to go into actually entertaining territory. A good example of this is The King's Speech, which has some amusing moments, but is mostly as serious as possible to avoid any consideration that this might actually be fun to experience. The fifth way of getting an Academy Award is to have your character be physically or mentally handicapped in some way. For example, they have polio, they are slightly mentally retarded, they have a stutter, or they're blind or something like that. You know that scene in Tropic Thunder where they talk about how you never go full retard? That's extremely true. Once again, a good example of this is The King's Speech, which is about a guy who has a really heavy stutter. And finally, the sixth way to win yourself an Academy Award is, quite frankly, to be so old that the Academy thinks that you're going to die before they have a chance to give you your first Oscar. A good example of this is not The King's Speech, actually, which surprises me. I would have thought that they would have put an old guy in that movie just to be safe. A real good example of this is Al Pacino's performance in Scent of a Woman. Al Pacino is, of course, a legendary actor with all kinds of great performances that he never won an Oscar for. So when he did The Scent of a Woman and his hoo-ah character and all that, the Academy gave him an award just to be safe. And of course, if you do multiple of these 6 things, like, for example, The King's Speech does, then your odds of winning an Oscar increase exponentially. For example, Al Pacino's character in Scent of a Woman wasn't just an old guy, he was also blind, and he didn't go full retard. Now you might be thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with Will Smith? Well, let me tell you, dear viewer. For almost a decade now, starting with The Pursuit of Happiness in 2006, Will Smith has been trying to win himself an Oscar. Hard. The Pursuit of Happiness, besides being a personal project with him and his son, was a very Oscar-baity movie. It was very important, it was very serious without being too serious, and it was a biopic, so surely he was going to win, right? Well, wrong, actually. In 2006, the Best Actor Oscar went to Philip Seymour Hoffman, one of the greatest actors of our generation, who did a biopic of Truman Capote. But Will Smith, being determined, hard-working, and honestly, he's just so dreamy, was not done. So in 2008, he made 7 Pounds, which was an attempt at a very important movie, and an attempt at being serious enough for an Oscar. It didn't go well. But besides the fact that 7 Pounds was objectively speaking terrible, the Best Actor award in 2008 went to Daniel Day-Lewis, one of the best actors of our generation, for his role in There Will Be Blood, one of the best movies to come out in, oh, I don't know, the past 30 years. After 7 Pounds, which was until The King's Speech happened, the most blatantly Oscar bait movie of all time, failed Will Smith, he took a break for a little while, but now he is back in Oscar-winning form, damn it! And his next movie, called Concussion, is a very serious, very important biopic of a guy with an accent, which also helps. So this leaves us with 2 questions. Number 1, why has Will Smith failed to win an Oscar, besides the fact that there were other movies out at the time that were better? And number 2, will he get it this time? Well, despite the fact that Will Smith is amazing and I love him, there is one thing that he really doesn't understand about the Oscars. People hate movies that are designed to win Oscars. After all, I bet you that you could not think of one person who actually enjoyed The King's Speech. Now, they might have thought, oh wow, this is such a great movie, but there's no way they enjoyed it. And if you make a movie like 7 Pounds, which is just in every single way a clinical, medical exercise in trying to win yourself an Oscar, then it's not just unenjoyable, it's actively terrible, and even the critics you're trying to impress will not like the movie. The other problem that Will Smith faces in his quest for an Oscar is that his movies come out in the same year as movies featuring some of the best actors we'll ever see within our lifetimes, such as Philip Seymour Hoffman, may he rest in peace, who was one of the greatest actors of his generation, and Daniel Day-Lewis, who, while completely insane, sure is one of the best performers I've ever seen. So with Concussion, Will Smith's next venture into Oscar bait territory, has he fixed these two problems? Well, he's got one of them down pat. Concussion is what The Pursuit of Happiness and 7 Pounds were not, and that is something that looks to be a very, very genuinely good movie. After all, it's not enough that you touch base on those 6 territories, you also have to have a good movie to win an Oscar. But has he fixed the second problem? Not so much. In order to win his Oscar this year, Will Smith will have to beat out Michael Fassbender in a biopic of Steve Jobs, Leonardo DiCaprio in a biopic of... Well, honestly, does anybody actually know what The Revenant is about? I don't. Joseph Gordon-Levitt in a biopic of that guy who walked the wires on the Twin Towers. Michael Fassbender again for his portrayal of Macbeth. And the entire cast of Star Wars for being in Star Wars. I'm so excited that this movie is happening! Now, you may have noticed that all of those names, Fassbender, DiCaprio, Gordon-Levitt, the entire cast of Star Wars, have one thing in common. They're all incredible performers. And you may have noticed the movies that they're in are, while not necessarily Oscar bait, all well-trodden Oscar-winning territory. So no, Will Smith has not learned his lesson about timing the movie that he comes out with. And just as important, none of those guys have an Oscar either, so the Academy won't say, well, Will Smith doesn't have an Oscar yet, and give him advantage number 6 because it applies to everybody else as well. So in answer to that question, honestly no, I don't think this is Will Smith's year. He's going to have to try again. Because Will Smith, while being a great actor and one of my favorites of all time, he's not as good as Fassbender or DiCaprio. Gordon-Levitt, I don't know, it could go either way. As of this moment, my prediction is that Michael Fassbender wins Best Actor for his portrayal of Steve Jobs. DiCaprio is never going to win an Academy Award. Sadly, he's so beautiful. Gordon-Levitt isn't as good as the others, and Will Smith is up against a brick wall here. But who knows? I've been wrong before. Alright guys, that was Tyler vs. Hollywood. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and hit that like button down there. And if you did not enjoy it, well, that's your life. I'm sorry. If you want to see more, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That's it for now. See you next time. Ow.